After 15 years, my wife cheated and pushed for an open marriage. I divorced and found another love. My name's John, and I'm 48 years old. For the last 15 years, I have been married to my beautiful wife, Sarah. We have built a life together that many would envy. We have two wonderful children, a son named David and a daughter named Emma. Life, for us, has always felt perfect. Every morning, I wake up to the sound of laughter and the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen. Sarah is usually up before me, preparing breakfast for the kids. I can still picture her standing there, hair slightly tousled, a warm smile on her face, and that twinkle in her eye that I fell in love with years ago. It's those little moments that make life special. Our weekends are filled with family activities. We love to go to the park, where the kids can run free, and we can enjoy the sunshine. Sarah and I often sit on a bench, watching David climb trees and Emma play on the swings. We laugh and reminisce about our own childhoods, sharing stories about how we used to play and dream. Those days feel so simple, yet so fulfilling. We also enjoy family game nights. We gather around the dining table with snacks, playing board games that turn into friendly competitions. The room fills with laughter and playful banter. Sometimes I look at Sarah and realize how lucky I am to have her by my side. She has been my partner through every challenge, my confidant, and my greatest supporter. Our love story feels like something out of a movie. We met in college, both studying hard, but always finding time for each other. I remember our first date. We went to a small Italian restaurant. I was nervous, but Sarah had this way of making everything feel comfortable. We talked for hours, discovering our shared interests and dreams. From that moment on, we were inseparable. After a couple of years, we decided to tie the knot. It was a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by family and friends. I remember the look on Sarah's face as she walked down the aisle. I couldn't believe I was marrying the woman of my dreams. We exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other for better or worse. As the years passed, we grew together. We faced life's challenges like buying our first home and juggling work and family responsibilities. But through it all, our bond remained strong. We were always there for each other, holding hands during tough times and celebrating our victories together. Raising our children has been one of the greatest joys of our lives. David is now 12, and Emma is 9. They are full of energy and curiosity. I love watching them grow and learn. Sarah and I work hard to provide them with everything they need, both materially and emotionally. We want them to feel loved and secure, knowing they can always come to us for guidance. Sarah is a wonderful mother. She is nurturing and patient, always encouraging our children to follow their dreams. Whether it's helping David with his homework or cheering Emma on during her dance recitals, she is always there, fully present. I admire her dedication and the way she manages to balance everything so effortlessly. Sometimes, I look back and wonder how we got here. It feels like just yesterday we were young and carefree, navigating the ups and downs of life. Now, we have a family, responsibilities, and a home filled with love. We have created a life that reflects our shared values and dreams. But life isn't always perfect. As I write this, I can't help but notice a subtle change in Sarah. It's not something I can pinpoint exactly, but there's a distance that wasn't there before. I notice she's been a bit more preoccupied lately, lost in thought. She still smiles and laughs, but sometimes I see a flicker of sadness in her eyes. At first, I dismissed it. Maybe she's just tired or overwhelmed with everything we have going on. After all, juggling work, the kids' activities, and household responsibilities can be a lot. But as the weeks go by, I can't shake the feeling that something is off. I try to talk to her, to ask if everything is okay, but she brushes it off. "I'm just busy, John. It's nothing to worry about," she says with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. I want to believe her, but my heart tells me otherwise. There's an uneasiness in my chest that I can't ignore. I start to pay closer attention to her behavior. She's been spending more time on her phone, often texting or scrolling through social media. When I ask her about it, she quickly changes the subject. I begin to wonder if she's hiding something from me. I've heard stories about couples who seem perfect on the outside but are struggling on the inside. I hope we're not one of them. It's hard to express these feelings to Sarah without sounding paranoid or accusatory. I love her and don't want to push her away. So I keep my thoughts to myself, hoping that whatever it is will pass. After all, we've built a life together, and I want to believe that we can overcome any obstacle. As I reflect on our journey, I remind myself of the love we share. The memories we've created together, the laughter, the tears, the dreams, are all a part of who we are. I cling to the hope that we can work through whatever this is. We've always been a team, and I believe that we can find our way back to each other. For now, I focus on the moments we still have together, cherishing our family life. I hold on to the belief that love conquers all, and that our perfect life will weather any storm. Little did I know, this would be just the beginning of a journey that would change everything. As the weeks turned into months, I began to notice more signs that something was not right. Sarah, who used to be so full of life and energy, seemed to be changing. It started slowly, little things that I brushed off as mere stress or fatigue. She became less engaged during our family dinners, often lost in her thoughts, while the kids and I talked about our day. At first, I thought it was just the weight of everyday life getting to her. With David's school projects and Emma's dance classes, our schedules had become hectic. I tried to help as much as I could, but it felt like Sarah was carrying a heavier burden. She often came home late from work, claiming she had extra meetings or deadlines to meet. I could see the bags under her eyes growing darker, but I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to believe she would bounce back soon. One night, as we sat on the couch watching TV, I glanced at her. She was staring at the screen, but I could tell her mind was elsewhere. I reached for her hand, hoping to connect, but she pulled it back quickly. "Sorry, I just need a minute," she said, almost absently. Her words felt distant, as if she was saying them from far away. I tried to hide my disappointment, but inside I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. The kids noticed it too. David, who is usually so chatty, started asking me if Mom was okay. "Dad, why does Mom seem sad all the time?" he asked one evening after dinner. My heart sank. How could I explain to him what was happening when I didn't even fully understand it myself? I reassured him that she was just tired, but I knew that wasn't the whole truth. I began to pay closer attention to Sarah. I noticed how she was spending more time on her phone, texting or scrolling through social media for what seemed like hours. When I asked her about it, she would respond with vague answers or say she was just checking in with friends. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from me. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen to find her on the couch, phone in hand, with an expression that I had never seen before, a mixture of guilt and fear. The moment I entered the room, she quickly put her phone down and turned to me with a forced smile. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, but the cheerfulness in her voice didn't match her eyes. "Just the usual," I replied, trying to keep the conversation light, but the atmosphere felt heavy, and I couldn't help but ask, "Everything okay with you?" She nodded, but I could tell she was holding something back. I decided not to press further, hoping that she would open up when she was ready. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's distance grew. It became more pronounced during family activities. One weekend, we planned a family hike. The kids were excited, but Sarah seemed uninterested. She trudged along behind us, her smile fading as we explored the trails. I felt frustrated because I wanted us to enjoy our time together. I wanted to relive those happy moments, but it felt like she was a world away. That night, I tried to talk to her again. "You seemed a little off during the hike today. Is everything okay?" I asked, concerned. She sighed heavily and replied, "I'm just tired, John. It's been a long week." I wanted to believe her, but a part of me was beginning to suspect that there was something deeper troubling her. As time passed, I found myself obsessing over her behavior. I couldn't help but replay our conversations, searching for clues about what was going on. I started to check her social media when she wasn't around, looking for any signs of a secret life. I knew it wasn't right, but I felt desperate to understand what was happening. One evening, while Sarah was in the shower, I took the opportunity to look at her phone. My heart raced as I unlocked it, but I only found a few messages from her friends about planning a surprise birthday party for me. My heart sank a little. Part of me hoped for something more revealing. I quickly put the phone back, feeling guilty for even looking in the first place. I thought back to when we first got married and how we used to talk about everything. It was so easy back then. Now it felt like we were drifting apart, and I was losing my best friend. I missed our late-night talks, our shared dreams, and the closeness that we once had. It felt like we were two ships passing in the night, each lost in our own world. To distract myself, I tried to focus on my work and the kids. I became more involved in their activities, volunteering at school events and coaching David's soccer team. But every time I came home, I was reminded of the distance between Sarah and me. She was physically there but emotionally absent, and it hurt more than I could express. As the holidays approached, I hoped that the festive spirit would bring us closer together. I planned a family outing to decorate the house for Christmas, thinking it might lift her spirits. But when the day came, she seemed uninterested. I watched her half-heartedly hang ornaments on the tree, her mind clearly elsewhere. When I asked her if she was excited for the holiday, she responded with a lukewarm, "Sure," and I felt my heart sink again. I wanted to shake her and tell her how much I needed her to be present, but I didn't know how to bridge the gap that had grown between us. That night, I lay in bed next to her, feeling the space that felt so vast. I wanted to reach out, to hold her close, but I felt as though there was a wall between us. I tried to find the words to express my worries, but they all seemed to get lost in the silence of the night. As I stared at the ceiling, I began to wonder if I was imagining things. Maybe I was overreacting, seeing problems where there were none. I didn't want to believe that our love was fading. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more it consumed my thoughts. I had to face the truth. Something was indeed shifting in our relationship, and I was scared of where it might lead us. The warmth of our once perfect life felt like a distant memory, and the tide of change began to pull us apart. It was a chilly Saturday morning when everything changed. The kids were still asleep, and I decided to take advantage of the quiet house. I made a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone. I was trying to find something to lift my spirits, maybe a funny video or an interesting article. When I saw Sarah's phone charging on the counter, I hesitated for a moment. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but a nagging feeling pulled at me. I picked up her phone, telling myself I would just look at the wallpaper, the picture of our family that always brought me joy. But as I held the phone in my hands, a wave of unease washed over me. I took a deep breath and opened it. The screen was unlocked, which surprised me. I could feel my heart racing as I hesitated again, but my curiosity got the better of me. I scrolled through her messages, mostly conversations with friends and family, but then I saw a name I didn't recognize, Tom. My stomach dropped. I opened the chat and felt my breath hitch in my throat. The messages were flirty, filled with heart emojis and laughter. My hands trembled as I read through the conversation. It was clear that Sarah had been spending time with this man. They were making plans to meet up, sharing inside jokes, and talking about how much fun they had together. Every word felt like a dagger piercing my heart. The laughter and joy that once filled our home felt like distant echoes now, replaced by this painful reality. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she do this to us, to our family? I sat there, frozen, as my mind raced through memories of our life together. I thought about the love we had built, the dreams we shared, and the promises we made to each other. I couldn't believe I was seeing this. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall, but I forced myself to stay calm. I took a few deep breaths, trying to gather my thoughts. I needed to confront her, but I had no idea how. The kids were still sleeping, and I didn't want to make a scene, but my heart felt heavy with betrayal. As I sat at the table, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Sarah had been emotionally distant, but I never imagined she would be unfaithful. The trust we had built over the years was crumbling before my eyes. I thought about all the times I had tried to reach out to her, to ask if she was okay, and how she had brushed me off. After what felt like an eternity, I decided to put the phone back where I found it. I needed time to process what I had just discovered. I couldn't let the kids see me like this, and I didn't want to confront Sarah without thinking things through. I stood up, my heart racing, and took a long walk around the neighborhood, hoping that fresh air would clear my head. As I walked, I replayed our life together in my mind, searching for signs I might have missed. I thought about all the happy moments, the family vacations, the birthday parties, the quiet evenings on the couch. But now those memories felt tainted by this new reality. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach, each step heavy with the weight of my heartache. I returned home, trying to act normal as I walked into the living room. The kids were awake and playing video games. I forced a smile and joined them, but my heart was not in it. I wanted to be present for them, but my mind was racing with thoughts of Sarah and Tom. I couldn't shake the feeling that my whole world was falling apart. When Sarah finally came down, I watched her closely. She seemed carefree, laughing and chatting with the kids. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, to ask her about the messages and lay bare the betrayal. But another part of me wanted to keep the peace, at least for the kids' sake. I didn't want to ruin their day, especially since it was Saturday, our family day. As the day wore on, I felt myself slipping into a fog of confusion. I went through the motions, helping with lunch and cleaning up after the kids, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying the conversations I had read. What was Tom to her? Did she love him? Was this just a fling, or was she looking for something more? That evening, after the kids went to bed, I found myself sitting on the couch in the dark. I felt numb, staring at the walls, as if they held the answers I needed. Sarah joined me, snuggling up under a blanket, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "What's wrong, John? You seem quiet," she said, looking at me with those innocent eyes. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but I also felt a deep sadness for what was happening to us. Instead, I just shook my head. "I'm fine. Just tired," I managed to say, forcing a smile that felt completely fake. She smiled back and turned on the TV, but I couldn't focus on anything but the betrayal. The warmth I used to feel when I looked at her was replaced by cold, bitter disbelief. I felt like I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. That night, as I lay in bed next to her, I struggled to sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the messages flashing before me. I wondered how I could have been so blind to what was happening right under my nose. I replayed all the moments I had felt her slipping away, and it all made sense now. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep this bottled up inside any longer. I had to confront Sarah about what I found. But how could I do it without tearing our family apart? My heart ached at the thought of hurting the kids, but I couldn't ignore the betrayal. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it would be. As I sat at the kitchen table, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I glanced at Sarah, who was preparing breakfast, her back turned to me. This was it. I took a deep breath, ready to face the storm, knowing that everything was about to change. The truth was out there, and I needed to uncover it. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting a soft glow on the breakfast table. My heart raced as I sat there, staring at the untouched plate of eggs and toast in front of me. I could hear the sound of Sarah moving around the kitchen, humming a tune as she prepared breakfast. It felt surreal, knowing that I was about to confront her about the betrayal that had shattered my world. After a few deep breaths, I steeled myself for the conversation. I could no longer ignore what I had discovered. The weight of the secret pressed down on me, and I knew I needed to address it before it consumed me completely. The kids were still upstairs, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing below. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice slightly shaking. She turned to face me, her smile fading when she noticed the serious look on my face. "Is everything okay?" she asked, concern creeping into her voice. "No, it's not," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. "We need to talk. It's important." She set down the spatula and walked over to me, sitting down at the table. I could see the worry in her eyes, and I could almost feel her heart racing alongside mine. "What's going on, John? You're scaring me," she said softly. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I saw the messages on your phone. The ones with Tom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know about the flirting and the plans you've made to meet him." The color drained from her face, and for a moment I thought she might deny it. But instead she looked down at the table, her hands trembling. "John, I didn't want you to find out this way," she whispered. "What way did you want me to find out?" I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. You should have told me. You've been hiding this from me, from our family. I know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been trying to figure things out. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt us. Hurt us? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've already hurt us, Sarah, I said, frustration lacing my words. You've been cheating on me, on our family. She looked up at me, tears glistening in her eyes. I know, and I'm so sorry. But can we please talk about this? Can we find a way to make this work? Make what work? I asked, incredulous. What do you mean? Maybe we can try an open marriage, she said, her voice shaky but resolute. It doesn't have to be the end for us, John. We can redefine our relationship. I was stunned into silence. My mind raced as I processed her words. An open marriage? It felt like a betrayal piled on top of a betrayal. You want me to just accept this, after everything? I asked, incredulous. Please, hear me out, she pleaded. I love you, but I've been feeling lost for a long time. This past year has been hard for me, and I thought I could find some freedom with Tom. But that doesn't mean I don't want you in my life. I still want to be your wife. But how can we go back to normal after this? How can I trust you again? I asked, my voice rising in frustration. You want me to share you with someone else? That's not how this works. I know it sounds crazy, she admitted, her hands clenching into fists on the table. But what if we set some ground rules? We could communicate openly about who we're seeing. We could have more freedom in our relationship. It doesn't have to mean losing what we have. What we had is already broken, Sarah, I said, the pain in my heart echoing through my words. I don't know if I can do this. I don't want to hurt the kids, and I don't want to live in a situation that feels wrong. Think about it, she urged. This could give us a chance to explore ourselves without losing our family. We can still be a team for the kids while finding our own happiness. I sat there, my mind racing. The thought of sharing my wife with someone else felt unbearable. Yet, I couldn't deny that I had been feeling the distance between us too. But this wasn't the solution I wanted. I had hoped for a chance to reconnect, to rebuild the trust we had lost, not to open the door to more hurt. I need time to think, I finally said, my voice heavy with uncertainty. This is a lot to process. Of course, she said, her expression softening. Take all the time you need. I don't want to pressure you. I just want to be honest about what I'm feeling. I nodded, feeling a mix of anger and confusion. You should have been honest before, I replied, my voice low. Now it feels like everything is upside down. She looked down, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know, I'm so sorry. I wish I could take it all back. But I want to make this work, John. I love you. Love. That word felt heavy now, weighted down by the betrayal and hurt. I wanted to believe her, but it felt like everything was falling apart. After a long silence, I stood up from the table, unable to sit there any longer. I'll be in the living room, I said, needing some space to think. I walked away, feeling the emotional distance between us stretching wider with every step. In the living room, I sat on the couch, trying to wrap my mind around everything that had just happened. The kids were playing in the other room, their laughter echoing through the house, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. I couldn't help but feel trapped in a nightmare, unable to escape. As I sat there, I replayed the conversation in my mind. An open marriage? I couldn't even fathom how that could work. How could I share the woman I loved with another man? How could I pretend everything was fine when my heart was shattered? But then again, what was my alternative? Was it worth fighting for a marriage that felt so broken? I thought about the kids. What would they think? How would they feel if their parents lived in a situation that felt so wrong? I didn't want to hurt them, but I also didn't want to sacrifice my happiness. Hours passed as I sat lost in thought. I knew I needed to make a decision, but I felt overwhelmed. I needed clarity, but everything felt so murky. When Sarah finally came to join me in the living room, her eyes were puffy from crying. I didn't know what to say. I could see she was hopeful, but I felt a wall between us. I just want you to know that I'll be here, no matter what you decide, she said softly. I love you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work. I looked into her eyes, searching for the love I once knew. But all I could see were the cracks that had formed in our relationship. I wanted to believe her, to hold on to the hope of rekindling our love. But in my heart, I knew that things would never be the same. With a heavy heart, I realized that I needed to find my own path, even if it meant facing a future I never imagined. It was time to evaluate what I wanted and what I deserved. The weeks following that fateful conversation felt like a blur. I was lost in a sea of emotions, trying to navigate through the pain of betrayal and the difficult decision I had to make. Every day felt heavy, and I could sense the tension in our home, even with the kids around. They could feel the changes, even if they didn't understand the details. I knew I had to talk to them. It was essential to be honest about what was happening in our lives, even if it was painful. I gathered them one evening after dinner, my heart racing as I prepared for the conversation. Their faces were bright and innocent, unaware of the storm brewing in their father's heart. "Hey kids, can we talk for a minute?" I said, my voice slightly shaky. They looked at me with curiosity and concern. "Sure, Dad. What's up?" my son Alex asked, a smile on his face that quickly faded when he saw my serious expression. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I need to tell you something important about me and your mom." Their eyes widened, and I felt the weight of my words pressing down on me. "Is everything okay?" my daughter Lily asked, her brow furrowing with worry. I nodded, though it felt like a lie. "Well, it's a bit complicated. Your mom and I have been going through some tough times. I found out that she has been seeing someone else, and it's been hard for both of us." The silence in the room was deafening. I watched their expressions shift from confusion to shock, and then to sadness. I wanted to reach out and comfort them, but I knew I had to be honest about our situation. "Does that mean you're going to get a divorce?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, it does," I replied, feeling my heart break at their reactions. "It's not because we don't love you. You both mean the world to us. But sometimes adults have to make difficult choices. Your mom and I can't stay together in a way that makes us happy." Tears filled Lily's eyes, and I could see the pain etched on both their faces. "But we want you to be happy, Dad," she said softly. "I know, sweetheart, and I hope one day you'll understand," I said, wiping away my own tears. "This is going to be hard for all of us, but I promise to always be here for you. You will never lose me." After that conversation, the house felt even quieter. I watched my children navigate their emotions, trying to reassure them as best as I could. We spent time together, playing games, watching movies, and talking about their feelings. I wanted to create a safe space for them, even as my own heart felt heavy with grief. In the following weeks, I filed for divorce. The process was painful, filled with paperwork and meetings with lawyers. I felt like I was losing a part of myself, but I knew it was necessary for my own healing and happiness. I also made sure to communicate with Sarah throughout this process, setting boundaries and trying to keep the discussions focused on our children. As we finalized the divorce, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I was stepping away from a life I had known for 15 years, and there was no going back. But I also felt a flicker of hope. It was time for a new beginning. After the dust settled, I focused on healing. I started to spend more time with my kids, creating new traditions that allowed us to bond and rebuild our family dynamic. We would go to the park on weekends, have movie nights with popcorn and ice cream, and even try new hobbies together. It was important for me to show them that, while things had changed, our love for each other remained strong. One evening, a few months after the divorce, I decided to take a leap and join a local community center for adult classes. I needed to get out of my comfort zone and meet new people. I signed up for a cooking class, thinking it would be fun and a good way to distract myself. On the first night of the class, I felt nervous as I walked into the kitchen. The smell of spices and herbs filled the air, and I could see other participants chatting and laughing. I took a deep breath and joined them, trying to shake off the weight of my past. As I started cooking, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Emily. She was friendly with bright eyes and a warm smile. We bonded over our shared love for cooking and our excitement about trying new recipes. I found myself laughing more than I had in months, and it felt refreshing. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I became friends. We worked on recipes together, sharing tips and laughter. I found myself looking forward to our classes, enjoying her company more and more. She was kind and understanding, and I felt a connection growing between us. One evening, as we were chopping vegetables for a stir-fry, Emily turned to me and asked, "So, what do you like to do when you're not cooking?" I hesitated for a moment, but then I decided to be honest. "Well, I recently went through a tough divorce, so I'm just trying to find my way again," I admitted. "I have 2 kids, and they're my world. But I'm also trying to rediscover myself." Her expression softened, and she nodded in understanding. "That sounds really tough. I can't imagine what you've been through. But it's great that you're taking steps to heal and find new passions." We continued talking, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as I opened up about my journey. She listened without judgment, and it felt nice to share my experiences with someone who cared. As the weeks turned into months, my friendship with Emily blossomed. We started going out for coffee after class, and eventually, we went on casual outings, hiking, visiting art galleries, and trying new restaurants. With her, I felt alive again. She brought laughter and joy into my life that I hadn't realized I was missing. One night, as we were walking through a park after dinner, I took a moment to appreciate how far I had come. The darkness of my past still lingered, but I could finally see light breaking through. I was ready to embrace this new chapter. "Emily," I said, stopping to look at her, "I really enjoy spending time with you. You've helped me heal in ways I didn't expect. Thank you for being here." She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I feel the same way, John. I'm glad we met. Life can be so unpredictable, can't it?" "It really can," I agreed. "But I think I'm ready to start something new, if you are." Her smile widened, and I felt a rush of warmth. We stood there, the air filled with possibilities. As we leaned in closer, I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was a feeling of new beginnings, a reminder that even after heartbreak, love could find its way back into my life. From that moment on, I embraced the journey ahead. I knew I had to navigate my new relationship with care, but I also understood that I deserved love and happiness. With Emily by my side, I felt hopeful about the future. As I looked back on the past few months, I realized how much I had grown. I had faced the pain of betrayal, made difficult choices, and emerged stronger. I was no longer the man who had been shattered by heartbreak. I was a father, a friend, and a man ready to embrace new love. With Emily, I found laughter, companionship, and a sense of peace that I had been longing for. Together, we were building something beautiful, something filled with promise and joy. I could see a bright future ahead, one where I could finally be the person I was meant to be. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. See you next time.